Hello and welcome to another video. Well, we have completed the motion canvas series for the most part, and in today's video we are going to create the gears tutorial. In this tutorial we'll use motion canvas to explore how to create shapes, manipulate elements, and control movement and create seamless animation step by step. And we'll recreate a dynamic video originally designed by one of my friends during a summer internship, featuring rotating and moving gears with embedded content. As the gears shift and move, additional elements will appear, fade away, and interact with the arrows and text before the animation loops back to the starting frames and repeat everything all over again. This video will be a repeat of the last three videos. So if you go on my site, which is tomcotech.io, go to Guides, Motion Canvas, Projects, Gears, we're going to be following along on what this page says. So the original video is posted here that my friend created, and you can see the gears are moving, we have arrows, we have people. Everything moves away, more arrows are reproduced. And then down below is the output of what we're actually going to make. While you see it's not necessarily perfect or identical, that's okay. The goal of this is to learn how to do something, not necessarily well, but at least create our very first project together. In the previous three episodes, so you can see 1, 2, and 3, you'll notice that there are part 1, part 2, part 3. This technically is part 4, but we won't have a part, simply because this is the combination of all three videos. The previous three videos were a very rough, I don't know how to do this, let's try to figure this out together type of vibe, which is why it was broken down into 3 parts. And this video is more of a, hey, I know how to do this, let me guide you along by following this tutorial, giving some explanations here and there of why things were done. And ultimately, this will be the video that you see if you go to this Gears project. We'll be replacing these 3 with that. If you would like to watch me struggle, I'd appreciate it. You can go to these 3 videos, but you don't have to. For prerequisites, I am going to be using Node.js. Version 20.17.0 will be used during this tutorial. I will have a guide on Node coming soon in the future. So if you go to Programming Languages, Node.js, there will be a guide in the future. We don't have one yet, but stay tuned. And then you can use your favorite IDE. I am using VS Code. For this tutorial. You can use Vim or whatever else you want. I know WebStorm is another good one. So if you do want to follow along, please go get yourself an IDE. Some useful links. We have Motion Canvas, and then we have the timing functions. Timing functions are essentially like, hey, I have an animation and it's moving, but the rate at which it's moving does change over time. So for instance, I have this bouncing one, which at the beginning of the animation will maybe go back and forth a little bit, eventually getting to the end result. And you can take some time to look at these animations on your own. We will be using a few of them, which is why they're linked here. So to start with making a motion canvas application, we need Node installed, we need NVM installed. I don't have that tutorial out yet. So if you need help or need help understanding how to do that, please put a message in the comment section below, and I will create a video right away to show you how to do that if you don't already know. The first step is to actually see what version of Node do I have installed. So I can do Node-V, and of course I'm using 20.17.0. The way I install Node is by using NVM also known as Node Version Manager, and it allows me to go between the different versions of Node as I want. Some projects are 16, some are 22. In this case, we're using 20. So as long as you're above 20, that's all that really matters. If you're 18, everything should still work, but not guaranteed. And version manager doesn't really matter, really. So with all that said, we're going to follow this tutorial to create our project. So we're going to go in npm init motion canvas, init at motion canvas at latest. And this came from, if you go to quick start for motion canvas documentation, and there is a link right here to motion canvas, you can see we're just following this tutorial on how to make a new animation. And if you have questions about any of these pages right here, I have a whole series of me learning on how to do it myself. It's not necessarily polished, and that is on purpose. So we're going to create our first video, our first project. Would we like to proceed? Yes. And what do we want to call it? We're going to call it gears. And our path is going to be gears. You can see it's grayed out, so we can either just hit enter or type it. Doesn't matter. We're going to use TypeScript. And then we're going to have both renderings. And then here we go. So yes, it says a new major versions available. I don't care. So then if we go to cd into gears, we're now in the gears directory. And then we can see that we have package.json, public source, tsconfig.json, and our vidconfig.ts. These are our basic files that come with a motion canvas project. And so I said previously that I'm using VS Code. So with VS Code, there is a helpful command called code dot, as in we're going into the current directory, to open it up. So if you have VS Code and you never knew about it, I did leave some instructions here on how to do it if you do have VS Code installed. So the first thing we're going to do is rename our project. So we are going to go into source, projects.ts, and it says that we want to rename our example to be gears. So what does that mean? We just want to go in here and go gears. Gears, gears. Now, it's red. Why is it red? That is because we didn't rename the scenes. So over here, I just want to go over here and just rename this to gears as well, because this is really referencing this. And now everything is still red because we actually didn't install anything. So you can ignore my brew thing. That's a internal thing that I do when I open up a new terminal. And we forgot to do npm install. You can also just do npm I short for install. As I'm reading this, code dot is not a replacement for npm start. It is just a additional command. So now we have everything installed. Now we can go npm start. I can go over here and go localhost. And here we are. Yes, we still have, it's red. We can completely ignore that. Okay, so we did step 3, we did step 2. 2 and 3 were a little bit out of order. I apologize. So the next thing we're going to do is change the background of our project. So our background configurations are stored here, you can see that we have null. For following this guide, we want to go to video settings, go over here, change this all the way to this upper left-hand corner, and then for alpha, we want to go all the way to 1, and that will change to 255, 255, 255 RBG, which will create a white background. With that done, you can also see over here underneath background, it has also changed from null to 255, 255, 255. So you can either modify it in the UI, or you can modify it in projects.meta. Both will work. So now we want to make our lives a little bit more organized and easier when making our components. So for our components directory, which components comes from a React kind of concept. So we have everything underneath sorts, not scenes, but source. And we want to make a new folder called components, ENTS. And in here, it's a good practice to have a index file, in this case index.tsx. And our index file isn't required, but it's a nice to have kind of thing, because you can see in this index file example, we have our 3 different imports. We have, and then we export it out. And then if we scroll down to the actual gears file, we're just importing from one single folder components. And so we go from having one source or 3 different lines down to 1 line. It makes it a little bit more easy to move stuff around as well if everything's pointing towards a central index. And it's more of a React-based front end UI type styling. So I'm going to skip over index. The important part is to import all of these files, and I'll get to what each one of these are. It's just as I update them, and I'll make sure to have examples. Okay. See, I'll just copy the whole thing and explain it in that manner. And we can see we're red because those files don't exist. Okay, so we can go to our scenes, and we can make our first item. Actually, I'm going to go into gears, and I will do it this way. We have gears, and then we're going to export gears. And this will allow me to show you what the different gears are. So let me copy this over. I'm going to make this like this so I can comment out the stuff I'm not using quite yet. And so we're good there. So all we need next is our gears template.txt, or tsx, and I'm just going to copy what I have here, and I will go over this file. So for motion canvas 2D, we're using a circle, a node, a view 2D, and a spline. From core, we're using a reference, range, possible vector 2, and signal value. For our templates, we are going to be, as the input to them, we are going to be using a object. And the reason why we're going to be using an object is because when you're trying to add stuff to our template, it is a lot easier to know, hey, I'm setting view to this, gear body to this, position to this, instead of saying, okay, what was the first, well, which one comes first? Was it position? Was it, which ref was it? In what order? So by having it as a JSON object, you can, as long as you're returning back a JSON object in any order, it will work. And because we're using TypeScript, we have to say what type that object is. So view is view 2D, and you'll see a lot of the stuff from Motion Canvas core is simply used because of TypeScript. And now for a trick that we are doing when it comes to making this is we have our make scene 2D, which its input is view. And anything we do to view will show up here. So the trick that I have found to kind of make my project more modular and more templated is to just pass view into another function or method, and you'll have a very modular and a little bit cleaner and less messy code. So from there, let me draw this down. Cannot use JSX unless, let's see, can we actually fix this because it's really annoying? I don't know. Okay, I guess that fixed it. What the actual fix was, no clue. But apparently that fixed it. Here, I'll show this on the screen if you're seeing the same issue, so you can compare what you have to what I have. I think the compiler options was the only thing. And again, this is just a VS Code thing. Now that everything looks a lot better, I'll continue. So this right here is a React fragment because Motion Canvas uses React under the hood. These are all React components, so this is a React fragment. It'd be the same thing as going fragment or React, not readable, it's React.fragment, and then I can import React if I wanted to. So that's just a shorthand. And the reason why we need that shorthand is because you can only add one object to add. And in our case, we were just using a fragment, so we can add two objects instead. We could do everything as one big giant node, but I find that using a React fragment is a little bit cleaner, less objects that we have to worry about, and it's just, in my personal preference, cleaner. So then we have our gear node, which will actually create the gear. We are making a reference, position, and scale. Our outer circle of the gear, and if I go over to, so the outer circle, so it's before all of these different cog parts sticking out of it, is size 305, and the gear color is whatever we pass in from above. The inner circle is this white part, is size 225, and it is white. The reason why we're doing two circles on top of each other instead of a line that goes in the shape of a circle, which is another option in Motion Canvas, and I would argue is the more correct way of doing it, is because there seems to be a bug where if you want to draw the full circle, the last little bit of it will be a little weird. And if you do zoom into one of my pre-made like symbols right here that uses circles, you'll see what I'm talking about. And then to make these little cog bits, in the comments it says gear teeth, we're making 11 of them, evenly spaced out. So there is no necessarily for loop, so we're doing a range of 11. That's a motion canvas thing. And then for each of the 11, we're going to loop through and create a new spline with line width 4, smoothness 0. These are the different ports. We're just making the one of the ones up top. Gear color, we're closing it to make a solid shape. And then we are going 360 degrees around the circle and putting one every so often. So this is how you would do it with the math. And then for the little components inside of it, we have another node with reference to body, and then we're just passing the body into that. Yes, this whole thing could be then passed in instead. This is just one way of doing it. And then if we wanted to take a look to see what it actually looks like, I can go down here. And we have our gear template. So I'm just going to copy this and replace everything that I have here with just our gear template. And then we can take a closer look to see it in motion. Oh. So we have our gear template. And we're making refs so that it is easy to do the animation portion of it. So, yep. And then we have our type node. And actually, I'm just going to take all of these inputs because I'm not actually, I am using create ref. What am I not doing? I don't know. I'm just going to put those all there because I'm missing something. Oh yeah, I'm missing node. I didn't include node up here before. And we have our position at this. We're scaling it from 1 to 0.75. The color is going to be orange. So this is going to be one of our smaller gears. Our body, we are actually passing a node for this case. And this node contains 3 texts. Kafka, Metadata, Microsurface. We're doing this so that everything is centrally spaced. And if I save this, we can see that we have, if I zoom in, we can see that we just have a single gear here. And I can modify this however I want. I can remove text. I can rearrange things however I want. Okay, and everything is perfectly centered inside of our cog. If you wanted to figure out how to make this yourself, what I did was I did the position from 0, 0, and then I'm now moving that whole node once I got what I wanted over to the new location and scaling it based on the node that I originally made it off of, which was the big blue one. So this is 75% of the blue one that we have. So that is gears. If something was not clear about the gears template or how things were done, please leave a comment down below or watch the first raw video of how we came to this and all these numbers in person. The next one is the person template. So I'm going to make a new component, new file, person template.tsx, and I'm going to copy the whole file over again. And similar to the gears template, we are taking an object of our cursor view, our person reference, and the position of where we want our actual person. We're going to have a node with those values. We're going to start with scale of 0 so that we can do an animation in the future where it starts from nothing and then it grows to meet its final position or size. So that's why we start with scale of 0 to kind of hide it. When you're actually trying to develop and create it, one thing I tend to do is just make it scale of 1 so you can actually see it. And then you have your head of the person. So if you want to take a look at it while I'm talking, we can go over here. You can make your head of the person. And we're going to make that size 113, such position. We're going to make it black. The way I made all these different gears and people and arrows is, again, you can watch the raw video, but I took the video, the original video, and I put it in the background of Motion Canvas, and I did all of my animations on top of it. Tried to line everything up, both the animations, the speed of things, and that's how you do it when you're trying to copy something else. And again, if you want to see the struggle of all that, go watch the part 1 through 3. As this is more of an explainer of how everything is put together. Lastly, we have the spine, which is this rough body shape. If I go to the real one, it's a little bit more smooth around the edges. This was the best I got given the time I wanted to commit to this. I could have a lot more points to try to smooth it out a little bit better, but I said this was good enough. It looks about the same. And with the smooth, you just play around with the numbers. With the points, you just play around with the numbers until you got what you want. And so if I want to give an example of that, I can go to index, uncomment my person, template, and then I can uncomment my person template here. And then I'm going to go down here and copy an example person. So after gears, I can go down here and put my person template, and my ref is a person left. So let me go grab that. And it's just a ref to the node. And again, the nodes are just there to allow me to work on the animation a little bit more. But if I zoom out a little bit, let's go zoom to fit. And we are missing our person left because I grabbed person right, not person left. So let me fix that real quick. And then we have our person left. And like I said, we start with scale of 0. So it's not there. It's there, but it really isn't. So then we are going to create our arrow template. Our arrow template.tsx. And I'm going to copy that over. And our arrows, if we scroll to the top, are these massive arrows. One thing that allowed me to struggle, or had me struggle on making the actual arrows, was I was under the expectation that the arrows were the same thing, just different scaled in orientation. I later found out that was not what happened at all. Each arrow is different, so because of that, we have, of course, our different scale, our different references to the group overall, the arrow ref is just the arrow, and then the words. because we make the arrows and words appear at different times, and then the group is so that we can make them both disappear at the same time, you technically don't need the reference to the whole node. You can just use the scale here, and the scale can also just be applied to each one individually, and you can get rid of this whole node, but for organization purposes, we just have this node. And then we have a word ref, arrow positions, which is an array, the words themselves, and the word positions. And for the arrow, we have position 1, position 2, position 3. We have end be 0, so that similar to the people, we can show an animation that grows the arrows, and then we have an arrow end arrow, which you can see right here. You can see it's not exactly the same as the original arrow, but I said for the sake of the tutorial that was good enough. You're more than welcome to try to improve upon this template, try to make it better, try to mimic this original video even more. If you do want to download this original video, you can just double click on original video, and then you can say save video as, and then you can save this video and then import it into Motion Canvas, and line everything up a little bit better. And then our arrow size is 20 because we have an arrow. And then the words, we have our words just here. We just have one text field. We can use a new line character to make a new line. And we're going to scale our words based on the scale of the arrow. This is simply saying that if the scale is 1, we want the words to be at the right scale. So if we're at this first scene, if you will, it's not a Motion Canvas scene, but this first part of this video, the words are a normal size. And then when we scale the whole thing down by, let's say, 50%, we don't necessarily want the words to scale down by 50%. So we scale them down by, let's say, 50%, and then we take that 50%, we times it by 3, and to get to 1.5 times 50, so really, I guess 75% for scaling. Math is a little weird. It could be done completely different. And again, like this was end equals 0, we're going to do opacity equals 0. For an example of what that would look like, let me make sure I uncomment the arrow template in our index. Our index is now completed. I'm going to close those all out, and I'm going to grab an example of one of our arrows. This arrow is good enough, so we just have the word request here. And I forgot to uncomment arrow template. And then we have left group, the arrow group reference, arrow reference, word reference. So let me go grab those real quick. And then we have our different references that we need to complete this. And yes, there are a lot of references. And then if we want to go over here, oh, not necessarily that, we can show what this would be as 1, and this is 1. And we can see our arrow appeared. If you want to change this back to 0, we can see the words are appeared. If we want to go to 0.5, we can see that the arrow is only halfway. And then we can go 0 if we just wanted to not show it, 0.1 to kind of show it starting. And you can see it starting to come out of nowhere, 0.1. You can really play with it if you want. But we want to set it to 0 because we're starting with nothing. So those are the different templates, going over them why we did such and such. Next, we want to update our main file gears. So I'm just going to copy this and go into gears. And if I'm talking too fast or going too fast, feel free to watch parts over and over again. Free feel to slow the video down, or watch the other 3 raw videos. Sorry, there's a lot of silence and a lot of rambling on, but this is how I code, and how I want to show people that, hey, everything's not necessarily polished. When you do code, sometimes things get a little messy. And then this video is supposed to be the more polished one. So then we have our imports. So we have make scene 2D, which is required for all motion canvas documents. We have our node for our references to our nodes. We have our text, circles, lines, recs, and quad Bezier, mostly for references or to use as the inner part of our gears. And so let me scroll all the way through this and explain how things work. So of course we have our different components, and I'm just going to put this on a loop so you can watch this in the background as I'm trying to explain the different code here. So we have our references that we have and created. So we have our references for the gears themselves. We have the references for the bodies so that we can make them appear. We can do whatever we need to do with them. Move them, whatever. Because remember, the gears are not a complete node, and things could be again done differently or done a little bit better. We have our person right, person left, as you saw previously. We have our main arrow left groups, or main arrow right groups. So main arrow is just the first section. So you can see right here, main arrow 1, main arrow 2, or left and right group. And then after some time, this will go into smaller arrows, all going at the same time. And so if we wait a little bit, it disappears. And then you can see all these other groups 1 through 5, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and all of our different arrow groups. So I already explained the first arrow, which was this orange one. Then we have the blue arrow, which is this one. And we again have Kafka Events Microservice, or MS, as words here. The next one is the green one. And so the symbol for Kafka is this right here. And instead of taking an image from the internet, I decided that it's just a simple enough image. I'm going to make my own. And actually, if you zoom into this one, you can see how there's like a weird slice taken out of most of these. That's the bug that I talked about that I didn't want to happen with the gears. And so for this, I was tired. I didn't care. It was good enough. So like the other ones, I paused the main video, overlaid the circles the best I could, and connected the lines the best I could. And so it was a lot of troubleshooting, debugging, trying the different points. Like I have a line right here, for example, trying to say, hey, we have our centered circle. We have a circle up here. We have a line connecting the two. What points necessarily are that line? And how thick is everything? A lot of troubleshooting and playing with the numbers just to try to make things look perfect, or close enough to perfect, happened. Again, if you want to watch me struggle, watch the other ones, other videos as well. Then we have the purple one. This had more rounded cubes, where I didn't care as much when I was working on this. So we just wanted to have just an array of 6 cubes in a square-like configuration. And those are all the different squares and configuration. One thing that you can do to improve this is make this into a loop so that you only have to make one. And if you can have 2 loops, or figure out some math if you just need 1 loop, then you can go ahead and modify that. And I'll talk more about that later. Then you have our person templates. People are pretty easy. You just got to tell them which position do you want, and then that's it. So then you have your main arrows. You have your position for your first arrow. So position 1, or index 0, index 3. Let me actually back this up a little bit. So index 0 is right here. Index 2 is right here. Index 3 is somewhere over here. So if I go to 485 and then 360. Yeah, right here. Oh yeah, I did. So I'm clicking on the inspector right now, and you can see the different points. Point 0, 1, and 2. For the different points, in order to make the curve line up to how we wanted it to. And then we have a scale of 1. We want to post the word's request and the word position. Likewise, we can do the same thing with the word response. When we're going through this, we want to do the same thing with the other arrows. Like I said, you can do a new line for for all the different words that have 2 lines. Yes, you should be able to have the multiple objects like I'm doing for Kafka Event Microservice and Kafka Metadata Microservice, but this also works depending on what you want the look and feel to be. And I can have the different arrows that you see here in the different positions. So now we're getting to the more fun and exciting part. And you can see by having the different arrows, or the different templates, I didn't need to create the same code multiple times. I just needed to have a template, and then which parameters do I need to modify said template. Could this be improved? Absolutely. And then we wanted to do, so one complicated thing with this tutorial, with this animation, is everything is moving at the same time. The gears are constantly moving throughout the entire animation, which kind of causes a bit of a pain, because typically how Motion Canvas was set up was you do one animation, stop, do the next animation, stop, do the next animation. And so there really isn't a great way of having like all of the animations go one after another when you also have just this going, because how generators work, etc. So we have to use yield all. All says that do everything at the same time, all at once. And then we want to do our different rotations. So this is like the group of it, so the outer colors. And the reason why the inner part isn't really connected is because we didn't want it to also rotate. We wanted it to stay still. So we're rotating. This should technically be a loop of some sort, but I was not able to figure it out. So I'm rotating 6 times. So 360 times 6. You can see positive and negative for the different ways I'm rotating. So 6 times, and then this is how long the animation is. So 10 times 6 is 60 seconds. The video is supposed to be about a minute long or 60 seconds long. So I'm doing this rotation the entire part of the video, and it actually works pretty nicely. I'm doing full rotation, one full rotation every 10 seconds. And we want to do a linear rotation, so the rotation's constant throughout the entire video. By default, it's not linear. I found out the hard way. And so I had to go through here to try to find which function do I need to use. You can see linear is not here. Linear is a built-in one in Motion Canvas. So if I go linear, wrong linear, EAR, maybe I can't find it real quick. So yeah, it says the default is, where is it? Yeah. So here's talks about the default. Can't seem to find it here, but just trust me, it's there. There's documentation about linear. And so then to get to the next animation, which is the people coming back. So I mentioned how we're going to bring the people from a 0 scale to full scale. So we do a scale of 1, and we want to do that in 1 second. And then this is our timing function for doing that. So you can see when it comes for the first time, kind of has a little bit of a bounce. So you see that little bouncing effect? That's the ease out back function. And I found that out by coming out here. So ease out back is, yeah, here's ease out back. There it goes. And so we want to delay the animation by 0.5 seconds. And then the next part of the delay is what do we want to do afterwards? Since we have two animations or two objects that we want to appear at the same time, I have person right, person left, and those are both happening at the same time, starting at the 0.5 second mark. At the 1.5 second mark, we want to start the first major arrow, this major arrow, and then a little bit after that, we want to do the next arrow on the right. And then in 4 seconds of the entire video, we're going to make the words appear at the same time. So if I can play this a little bit. Nope, I'm going to restart this. So you can see that, and make the words appear all at the same time. Let me start again. People begin, arrow, arrow, word start, and then in 19 seconds, so you can watch this clock right down here. In 19 seconds, the people will go back. So ease out back, ease in back at 19 seconds. You can see at 19 seconds it starts. Looks like 20 seconds, but it really is 19. And then at 19.5, the arrows disappear. And then half a second later, the gears move to the correct position. The body we're also having move to the correct position at the same time. So everything looks like it's one cohesive unit, even though it's technically two different pieces. And then a second later, we're drawing all the lines all at once. 2 seconds after that, we are having the words appear in a 1/4 of a second. So So I'll wait for it to happen. So then the lines will appear all in 2 seconds. And then in a quarter of a second, the words appear. And then we wait, because this is supposed to be a presentation my friend was doing. So this gave her some time to talk about what this diagram really is. We don't care. We just want to make the diagram. So at 58 seconds, we are going to make the arrows and words disappear at the same time. That's where the group comes in. It makes it less lines of code. Yes, I could do something like I did here and just have both the words and arrows as 2 separate items, and then I would have to have them both remove at the same time instead of just using a whole group. And then lastly, with 1 second left, we are moving the gears back to the original position in linear time. And then the video, of course, repeats itself, because in the motion canvas UI or the studio, I have it on looping. So it looks pretty cohesive and nice. So that was a overview and tutorial of how all this works, how it all fits together to get what you're seeing here. Again, if you wanted to watch me struggle, feel free to watch the 3 raw videos to get to this final output. It was a lot of struggling, especially with the different arrow positions. It was a lot of work trying to essentially find the positions of every single piece. Was a lot. But now that you're done, congratulations. You've made your first working motion canvas animation, but we can make it even better. There is room for improvement. This is our first project. Is it perfect? No, but it works. That's the point. We want to get to a working state first, and now that we know how to do it, we can go back and make things better, learn better ways of going about this, and better. And this is how you learn. You get something working first, and then you learn on how to improve it. So the first thing that we can improve upon is if I go back to the gear templates, we have this body, and in each body field for gear templates, I just have the raw logic here. We can import them as new components like we are doing here. So we could do we could add them next to components, or we can do a components slash gear body, however you want to design it. And similar to our components here, not necessarily view.add, it'd be returning a node instead of view.add, but in a similar approach, you can create the output of that function or method to be this, and then instead of body node blah blah blah, it would be either you'd be importing the function or you'd be importing the JSX object, or really TSX object. So that's one bit of homework that you could work on to improve. You can group the references. So we have a lot of references. We can group them into an array if you want, and maybe remove or add some references and how they make sense. We can update the text with the arrows to make an array of strings instead of a single string. And you can loop over the array so that every new line is perfectly centered. So one of the issues we have here is with Kafka Event MS, everything's perfectly centered because we have 3 different text objects. Versus here, get schema or cluster info or validate schema, it's not perfectly centered. And we can get it perfectly centered with each other by having multiple nodes. And instead of passing just a string of text with new lines, you can pass an array of text and then figure out how to parse that array so that the middle object is still centered, whatever it is, if there's 3 lines, or figure out the math behind how to get it perfectly centered, like I manually did here, for example. So that's a bit of homework that you guys can do. And then also, instead of, like I mentioned already, instead of manually creating a grid of squares in the bottom gear, can you make it using 1 or 2 loops. So in here, I am painstakingly manually creating all the different items here. Technically, you can be doing it in a different way. Everything's either -50, +50, or 0. And you can decide how you want to do that. You can do it with just 1 loop if you wanted to. You can also do it with 2 loops. I tried having 2 mapping functions previously. If you watched the different parts of the video, the different raw parts that I did leading up to this video, and there was some struggles. Maybe because, again, we're all learning. I wasn't doing it right. This is your chance to say, hey, I want to try do it myself. Have it be a nice little challenge that you can do to maybe clean up and make this code a little bit better. Also, as a hidden 5th option here, make this your own. This is a good starting point. It's a little rough. That's on purpose. It allows you to have different things that can be improved so that you can learn on your own path to learning Motion Canvas. And you can maybe, instead of putting this symbol here, maybe you want to create a different symbol. How would you go about doing that? If you wanted to repurpose this to, let's talk about nuclear engineering, or if you wanted to talk about how different parts of a computer work together, you can do that as well. There's different things that you can do with this to try to make it your own. Maybe you can make the people a little different. Maybe you can make unicorns or an alligator, for instance, instead of a person template. So really try to make this your own and use this as a stepping stone to that point. With that, we are done with the gears tutorial. Thank you so much for watching. It really means a lot. In the next video, I'll be going over a brand new tutorial. This will be dealing with more APIs, not APIs in the sense of a Motion Canvas API, but more as a web-based REST API. So how would you create content that's dynamic from the internet? So I think that would be really cool, and that will be our next tutorial that we'll have with Motion Canvas. So until then, I will see you later. Have a great day.